Picture this. I'm standing at the edge of my kitchen counter, a chipped coffee mug in hand, staring out the window at a squirrel darting across the power lines. It's not the kind of moment you'd expect to linger in your mind, but somehow it's burned there. My name is Monica, and at 48, I've spent more than half my life tethered to the same man, David. 22 years of marriage, to be exact. That's over 2 decades of shared toothpaste tubes, folded laundry, and the kind of silence that grows heavier with each passing year. I'm not sure when it started feeling like we're just 2 people living parallel lives under one roof, but here we are. Our home sits in a quiet suburban pocket, a modest 2-story with a lawn I trim every other Sunday, more out of obligation than pride. The grass is always neat, the hedges clipped, but there's no real life in it, just like the rest of our routine. Every evening, David comes home from his accounting job, his wire-rimmed glasses slightly askew, that faint smile on his lips that used to feel warm but now barely flickers past his mouth. He's 50, steady as a metronome, dependable to a fault. We sit at the same oak table we've had since our first apartment, eating meals I've cooked on autopilot, chicken casserole on Tuesdays, spaghetti on Fridays, and we talk about the same things. His spreadsheets, my endless emails as a part-time administrative assistant, the electric bill that's crept up again. It's not that we argue, it's worse. We've stopped having anything worth arguing over. I wasn't always like this, you know. There was a time I'd spend hours with paint under my fingernails, teaching art to high school kids who'd roll their eyes but secretly loved the chaos of a blank canvas. I had dreams back then, big messy ones about galleries and exhibitions, about a life that burst with color. Now, my evenings are spent hunched over my phone, scrolling through other people's curated happiness, feeling this ache I can't name. It's not just boredom. It's heavier, like I've misplaced a piece of myself somewhere along the way, and don't know where to start looking. David sees it too, I think. Or at least, he used to. These days, his eyes don't linger on me long enough to notice much. We've become experts at coexisting without really connecting, like actors in a play we've performed too many times. But something's been shifting lately, even if I couldn't pinpoint it at first. A few nights ago, we went out for dinner. Nothing fancy, just the diner down the street with its sticky menus and overcooked fries. It was supposed to be just another night, another box checked in our endless list of habits. But there was something in David's tone as he stirred his coffee, something unfamiliar, almost sharp. I remember the way his fingers tapped the spoon against the mug, a nervous rhythm that made my stomach twist in a way it hadn't in years. That night at the diner was just a prelude, though. It planted a seed of unease, a quiet whisper that something was coming, and now, here I am, sitting across from David at Bella Nota, a cozy little Italian joint tucked away on a side street we've driven past 100 times, but never stopped at until tonight. The place feels like a memory I haven't lived yet, with its dim amber lighting casting soft shadows across the red, checkered tablecloths. The air is thick with the scent of garlic and rich red wine, mingling with the faint sweetness of fresh bread. Small candles flicker at each table, their tiny flames dancing in glass holders, and the hum of conversation around us feels distant, like we're in our own little bubble. We've just finished our meal, pasta with a creamy sauce that clung to every bite, and now we're sharing a slice of tiramisu, the kind that's so good it almost makes you forget the world outside. I'm scraping the last bit of cocoa-dusted cream off the plate with my fork when I catch David's gaze. There's something in his eyes, an intensity I haven't seen in forever, like he's looking right through me to some hidden part I've forgotten exists. My chest tightens, not unpleasantly, just unexpectedly. He sets his fork down, leans forward across the small table, and lowers his voice to a deliberate murmur, almost a whisper. Want to try an experiment? Be honest? The words hang there, heavy and strange, like a riddle I'm not sure I want to solve. I blink at him, my fork pausing mid-air, a mix of confusion and curiosity swirling in my mind. What does he even mean by that? I study his face for clues, searching those familiar hazel eyes for a hint of a joke or a smirk, but there's nothing playful there. His expression is unreadable, serious in a way that makes my pulse tick up a notch. I notice how his fingers tighten around the stem of his wine glass, the knuckles whitening just slightly, like he's bracing for something. Is he nervous? Or is that just my imagination running wild? I don't know, but I can't look away. I'm intrigued. I'll admit it. But there's a hesitation, too. A little voice in the back of my head asking if I really want to open this door. Whatever it is. What if it's something I can't handle? What if it's just another disappointment? But there's a part of me, a bigger part than I expected, that's starving for something new, something to break the monotony that's been suffocating us. The silence stretches between us, thick and loaded, until I finally give a small nod, barely perceptible, but enough. His lips twitch, not quite a smile, and he suggests we head somewhere private to talk. Private. That word alone sends a shiver down my spine, not of fear, but of anticipation laced with uncertainty. We leave Bella Notte behind, the cool night air brushing against my skin as David leads the way to a hotel just a few blocks down. It's not the kind of place we'd usually go, too upscale, too polished for our usual haunts, but there's a purpose in his stride that keeps me from asking questions. My heart's thumping a little faster now, each step building on that strange mix of curiosity and nerves that started back at the restaurant. We check in without much talk, the clerk handing over a keycard with a practiced smile, and soon we're stepping out of the elevator onto the 10th floor, the hallway hushed and dimly lit, like it's holding its breath just for us. When David unlocks the door to our room, I'm struck by how sleek and modern it is, a far cry from the dated motels we've stayed in on rare road trips. The space feels almost too perfect, like a stage set waiting for a scene to unfold. There's a king-sized bed dominating the center, its crisp white sheets folded with military precision, and a plush gray comforter that looks softer than anything I've touched in years. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretch along one wall, offering a sprawling view of the city below, a sea of twinkling lights that seem to pulse with a life of their own. I step closer to the glass, mesmerized for a moment by the way the skyline seems to hum with possibility, before my gaze drops to a small round table tucked by the window. On it, there's a folded piece of paper, a handwritten note in David's familiar scrawl. I pick it up, my fingers trembling just slightly, and read the words. Put this on and wait. I'll be back soon. Next to the note, there's a black satin dress, folded neatly, its fabric shimmering faintly under the soft overhead light. Beside it, a pair of sheer stockings and a small glass bottle of perfume, its label reading Jasmine in elegant cursive. I stand there, frozen for a moment, staring at these items I've never seen before. Where did they come from? When did David plan this? My mind races with questions, but there's something else too. A flicker of intrigue, a pull toward the unknown that I haven't felt in so long. Yet, there's an unease creeping in at the edges, a whisper of doubt asking if I'm stepping into something I can't control. I run my fingers over the smooth satin, cool to the touch, and wrestle with myself. Should I trust him? After all these years, shouldn't I know better than to second guess? In the end, that hunger for something different wins out, nudging me to follow his instructions, to see where this leads. I slip out of my clothes, the mundane layers of my everyday life falling away, and step into the dress. The fabric glides over my skin, cool and slick, hugging my curves in a way that feels both foreign and thrilling. I pull on the stockings next, their delicate texture a stark contrast to the jeans I'm used to, and then I pick up the perfume bottle. I spritz a little on my wrists, the scent of jasmine blooming around me, rich and intoxicating, wrapping me in a warmth that makes my head spin just a little. I catch a glimpse of myself in the full-length mirror by the bed, and for a moment, I don't recognize the woman staring back. She looks bolder, more alive, like a version of me I buried long ago under years of routine. I sit on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping slightly under my weight, and wait. The room is quiet, save for the faint hum of the city beyond the windows, but inside me, it's anything but calm. My nerves are buzzing, a live wire of anticipation and uncertainty twisting in my chest. What am I waiting for? What's David planning? Minutes tick by, each one stretching longer than the last, until I hear the soft click of the door unlocking. My breath catches, and I straighten up, eyes locked on the entrance as it swings open. David steps in, his familiar frame filling the doorway, but he's not alone. There's someone with him, a younger man, maybe in his early 30s. The air in the room seems to thicken as the door shuts behind them, sealing us into this strange, charged moment. My heart is a wild drum in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears as I take in the stranger standing just a step behind David. He's tall, with sharp features and an unreadable expression, his dark eyes flicking over me briefly before settling somewhere past my shoulder. I don't know who he is or why he's here, but his presence feels like a weight, pressing down on the already fragile space between me and my husband. I want to ask questions, to demand an explanation, but my throat feels tight. The words stuck somewhere deep inside. The encounter that unfolds is a blur of tension, a dance of unspoken things I can't quite grasp. The stranger's voice is low, his words clipped and deliberate, though I barely register what he says over the roar of my own thoughts. David stands by, watching, his face a mask of calm that unnerves me more than anything else. It's over almost as quickly as it began, leaving a hollow kind of quiet in its wake. The silence that follows is heavy, suffocating, like a thick fog rolling into the room. I can't breathe properly, can't think straight. The stranger steps back, adjusts his jacket with a casual flick of his wrists, and heads for the door. He doesn't look at me again, doesn't acknowledge the storm he's just stirred up. The door clicks shut behind him, a small, final sound that somehow feels deafening. I'm left alone with David now, the space between us crackling with something I can't name. He's still seated in the chair near the window, his posture relaxed, but his gaze fixed on me with an intensity that makes my skin prickle. I can feel the heat rising to my cheeks, a flush spreading across my face as if my body is betraying every tangled emotion inside me. My hands tremble as I smooth the black satin dress over my thighs, the fabric cool against my overheated skin. I'm hyper-aware of every sensation, the way my pulse races, the slight shake in my fingers, the way the air seems to press against me, too thick to swallow. I don't know what just happened. Not really. I don't know how to process the way the stranger looked at me, or the way David watched it all unfold without a word of protest. Confusion swirls in my mind, a dizzying mix of guilt and bewilderment. How did we get here? How did a simple dinner at Bella Notte turn into this? Whatever this is? I search David's face for answers, expecting to see anger or hurt, something I can latch onto, something familiar to ground me. But there's nothing like that in his expression. Instead, there's a strange, quiet fascination, like he's seeing me for the first time. His hazel eyes, usually so guarded, are wide open now, studying me with a curiosity that makes my stomach twist. Is he disappointed? Disgusted? I can't tell, and that uncertainty gnaws at me deeper than I expected. I open my mouth to speak, to apologize or explain, though I'm not even sure what I'd say. The words are there, jumbled and messy, but before I can get them out, David raises a hand, a small, deliberate gesture that stops me cold. I freeze, my lips parting slightly, the unspoken apology hanging in the air. He doesn't say anything at first, just holds my gaze for a moment longer before standing up from the chair. His movements are slow, almost careful, as if he's measuring each step. He crosses the short distance between us and sits beside me on the bed, the mattress dipping under his weight. I can feel the warmth of him next to me, a stark contrast to the chill that settled into my bones. My hands are still trembling, and I clasp them together in my lap, trying to steady myself, trying to make sense of the storm inside me. When he finally speaks, his voice is soft but piercing, cutting through the silence like a blade. "Now, you're finally real." The words hang there, heavy and cryptic, sinking into me like stones into still water. The car hums beneath us as we drive home, the city lights streaking past in a blur of neon and gold. I'm in the passenger seat, my forehead pressed against the cool glass of the window, watching the world slip by without really seeing it. David's hands are steady on the wheel, his focus on the road unwavering. But the silence between us is a living thing, heavy and dense, pressing against my chest. I can still feel the phantom weight of that hotel room, the memory of the stranger's gaze, the way David's eyes bore into me with something I couldn't name. My mind keeps replaying every moment of tonight, frame by frame, like a movie I can't pause. The black satin dress, the scent of jasmine on my wrists, the charged air as everything unfolded. It's all still so vivid, so raw. I should feel ashamed, shouldn't I? That's what I keep telling myself. I broke a promise tonight, shattered a vow that's held me for over 2 decades. But as I sit here, the truth claws its way to the surface, sharp and unapologetic. I don't regret it. Not really. For the first time in years, I felt alive, like my skin was electric, like I was more than just a shadow moving through the motions of my life. I felt desired, seen, even if it was through a stranger's touch and under David's watchful stare. It's a dangerous kind of thrill, one that makes my heart race even now, miles away from that room. But it's not just exhilaration bubbling inside me. There's guilt, too, a bitter undercurrent that taints every breath. I think of our wedding day, the way I looked into David's eyes and swore to be his, only his, forever. What does that promise mean now? Have I broken something that can't be mended? And then there's the fear, cold and creeping, wrapping its fingers around my thoughts. What does this mean for us? For our marriage? For the quiet, predictable life we've built together? I glance at David, his profile illuminated by the passing streetlights, and I wonder if he's wrestling with the same questions. His face gives nothing away, though. It's as unreadable as it was back in that hotel room, and that scares me more than I can say. I want to ask him what he's thinking, to crack open this silence and let the truth spill out, but my tongue feels heavy, my words trapped behind a wall of uncertainty. We pull into our driveway, the familiar crunch of gravel under the tires grounding me for a fleeting moment. Our house looms ahead, the same modest 2-story I've called home for years, its porch light casting a warm glow over the neatly trimmed lawn. But as I step out of the car and follow David inside, I feel like an intruder, like I don't belong in this space anymore. The living room greets me with its worn couch, the same one we've sat on through countless movie nights, and the family photos lining the walls, smiling faces frozen in time, a younger me and David with dreams still bright in our eyes. I stand there, rooted to the spot, feeling the weight of those memories pressing down on me. Who am I now, after tonight? Do I even fit into this picture anymore? David doesn't say anything at first. He sets his keys on the counter with a soft clink and turns to me, his hazel eyes searching mine in a way that makes my breath catch. Then, he gestures to the couch, a silent invitation to sit. I lower myself onto the cushion, the fabric rough against my skin, a stark contrast to the smooth satin I wore just hours ago. He sits beside me, closer than I expect, and when he finally speaks, his voice is low, almost fragile, like he's afraid of breaking something between us. Monica, we've been drifting for years. You know that. I felt it, and I know you have too. I nod, unable to speak, because he's right. The distance between us has grown so wide, so quietly, that I barely noticed until it was a chasm. He takes a deep breath, his fingers fidgeting in his lap, a nervous tick I haven't seen in years. I wait, my heart thudding as he continues, his words slow and deliberate, like he's choosing each one with care. What happened tonight? It wasn't just a whim? I've been thinking about us, about how we've lost something vital. I wanted to shake us awake, to see if we could still feel anything at all. His voice cracks just a little on that last part, and it hits me hard, the rawness of it, the admission that he's been as lost as I have. The days that follow are strange, like we're walking on a tightrope, balancing between the life we knew and something entirely new. I wake up each morning with the memory of that hotel room lingering like a ghost, a mix of thrill and shame that I can't quite shake. But something else is happening too, something I didn't expect. David and I start talking, really talking, for the first time in what feels like forever. Not just about bills or schedules, but about the things we've buried deep. Over coffee one morning, the sunlight streaming through the kitchen window, I find myself telling him about the dreams I used to have, the ones I let slip away. I confess how I felt invisible, not just to the world, but to him. And he listens, really listens, his hazel eyes steady on mine. No trace of the guarded wall I'm so used to seeing. Then he surprises me by admitting his own fears, how he's worried he's become nothing more than a provider, a role instead of a person, how he's terrified of losing me even if he's not sure how to hold on. These conversations aren't easy. They're raw, sometimes painful, peeling back layers of resentment and silence we've built up over decades. But they're also a lifeline, a way to see each other again, not as the roles we've played, husband, wife, routine partners, but as people with desires and doubts. I notice small changes too, little shifts that mean more than I can say. We start lingering over coffee in the mornings, not rushing off to our separate worlds. One weekend, out of nowhere, David suggests a spontaneous drive to the coast. We pack a cooler with sandwiches and soda, and for hours, we just drive with the windows down, the salty ocean breeze tangling my hair, the radio playing old songs we used to sing along to. I catch him smiling at me, a real smile, not the faint flicker I've grown used to, and for a moment, I feel like we're young again, like the weight of all those years has lifted just a little. I've started painting again too, something I haven't done in ages. I drag out my old easel from the garage, dust off the brushes that have sat untouched for too long, and set up in the spare room. The first stroke of color on the canvas feels like a revelation, like I'm rediscovering a piece of myself I'd buried under years of monotony. David watches me sometimes, leaning in the doorway with a quiet curiosity, and one day, he even asks if he can try. We end up laughing over his clumsy attempt at a seascape, paint smudged on his cheek, and it's the lightest I've felt in so long. These moments, small as they are, feel like stepping stones, like we're rebuilding something from the rubble of what we were. But I can't lie. The memory of that night still haunts me. It creeps into my thoughts when I least expect it. A vivid flash of black satin and jasmine, of eyes that weren't David's meeting mine. There's a part of me that's ashamed, that wonders if I've crossed a line I can't come back from. Yet, there's another part, quieter but persistent, that sees it differently. That night, as shocking as it was, broke something open between us. It forced us to confront the numbness we'd settled into, to face the fact that we were slipping away from each other. I've chosen to embrace it, not as a mistake, but as a catalyst, a jagged, imperfect start to something new. It's not about repeating what happened, but about building something stronger and more honest from the pieces we've uncovered. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.